Zimmer. We're going to be speaking over here, so if you are wanting to sit there for the service, leave your books or your tully there, but do come sit in this section or this section to really be able to see us. I'm not sure it would be. Not with all the wiring that's under there. So good afternoon, everyone. It is lovely to be with those of you who are here in person and those watching via the live stream. I was reflecting on this part of our afternoon for Yom Kippur. So this is really one of our COVID keepers. We started this together, I think it was the first year when we were doing services during COVID, and we did a Zoom conversation that many people tuned into to watch, and we enjoyed the conversation, and so we've kept doing it every single year. And so this is now a fixture as a part of our Yom Kippur afternoon programming, where essentially we get to have a conversation. And many of the things that we end up talking about, we talk about because we meet every 6 to 8 weeks or so to have lunch together and catch up and just chat about various things in the Jewish world. And the only difference with this is that we do it with an audience who get to listen in on what we're talking about, but also towards the end, we'll also have a chance to ask some questions kind of based on what we end up discussing, if anything resonates or things that people are curious to ask about. And it is not really extensively planned in that way. I have a few questions that I wanted to ask Rabbi Blumberg in that respect, but beyond that, we will kind of free associate and move as we do based on the interest and based on where the conversation takes us.
But we also have to say, you suggested not extensively planned, but I have a few questions. Just for the record, I don't know what the questions are.
Yes.
And I'm not planned at all.
So I wanted to just begin by, I think many of us were here yesterday evening for our Kol Nidre service when Rabbi Blumberg spoke, and I think for many of us it was a tremendously powerful sermon and just beautiful in what you shared and the ideas and the lessons. And I was wondering if you wanted to say a little bit about the motivation for delivering that sermon or the process that went into it. The bit of backstory is what we end up doing, just again, for full transparency, we normally meet in June, and in June I say to Rabbi Blumberg, would you like to deliver a sermon these High Holy Days? He then thinks about it for a while and makes me sweat as to whether he wants to or not. And then based on what he decides he would like to do, that's where we put it based on whether it's Yizkor or Kol Nidra or wherever it belongs in our High Holy Day season. But that's that's the only insight I have beyond what we heard last night. So thoughts and comments, if you would like.
Just a couple of thoughts. I agreed to speak this year because I thought I really had something I wanted to share, but I wasn't quite sure what it was, except that the last several years I've been studying mystical tradition, spiritual growth personally, and looking at some of the classic texts and studying them on a weekly basis. And I guess I've developed a keener sense of my own spiritual journey and a keener sense of, I guess the only way I can say it is of the divine, of something beyond what we can see and hear and experience in the normal course of life. It's very hard to articulate that, and I'm still very much in the process of it. But the image of the brightness of the image of brightness of the light beyond our ability to totally see, something even more than the sun, it's a metaphor. It's an image, a way of thinking about the divine, and it's kind of within me, and I wanted to share that.
Thank you. When deciding on one sermon, one of the perks that Rabbi Lisa and myself have is we get to give 2 sermons. So we always get to choose a couple of subjects that we want to talk about at the High Holy Days. And I was wondering, if you had another sermon this year, what would it be that you would want to speak about to the community? What is it that you'd want to tell us, or subject matter that you'd want to engage with?
Well, one of the other thoughts I had, and actually, when we spoke, I think I said tshuva.
You took me by surprise. We have a list of what everyone's speaking about to make sure we don't overlap. And then Rabbi Blumberg started speaking, and it was going in a very different direction to what was on our list. And
at this moment, I don't remember what that was still going to be. But I was really struck at, now it's coming back a little bit. I struck at the arc, from the beginning of Elul to Simchat Torah, from the depth of contemplation and self-examination and the sadness of it and the uncertainty of it, and moving all the way to Simchat Torah with joy. And that's the tshuva arc. And at Simchat Torah, as we got to that arc, bang! I was going to bang on the bima. That was the only image that I had. It just shattered. And as you said this morning, Danny, and in such a personal way, it just shattered me. And where do we go from here? It's the theme. And I suspect that all of our colleagues around the country have, one way or another, taken the same theme. So that's where I would have gone. The other thing that I think we have to wrestle with is our relationship to Israel. And that's part of the shattering. What Israel was for us as generations has been altered in, I'm going to say broken. And maybe it was partially our naivete, partially our hope, and what do we do with that now?
I think when we think about that kind of journey, that we never got to really end the season last year in that way. We always kind of get to Simchat Torah, and that's the end, and then the day after Simchat Torah, you get to finally kind of exhale a little bit, because even though the end of Yom Kippur feels like a watershed moment, at least for the big part of the community and everyone gathering, the truth is that we know that Wednesday evening we start again with Sukkot, and then Simchat Torah again the following week. And so I think there's that piece that's really interesting to reflect on, that we went through this run that then didn't end, and in many ways we then picked it back up again 11 months, 12 months later, and started all over, and I'm not sure how we dealt with that.
To say it in another way, the grieving process began, and we're still grieving. I mean, that's what you said this morning. And we have to find a way to move from grieving to acceptance. For the Musar people, equanimity would be the word, and to move on from there to a new, with new hope. But how we do that is the struggle, you know. But we're right now in the midst of the, I think, of the grieving process. And just for the record, I mean, we talk about Israel, but our status as American Jews, we're grieving the golden years that are now sullied, tarnished, and we're also grieving the political world, the American political world. Maybe we're not grieving it, but we're damn worried about it right now, virtually all of us.
I think there's this piece of one of the challenges with some of, and we've actually talked about this several years ago, but this idea of that we have certain rituals to help us grieve when we lose a loved one, and we kind of know what to do when grieving in that kind of way. There's a set journey that is marked out for us that goes from burial to Shiva to Shloshim to the year, and in that respect there's a path that we are on, if you will. And I think that the rituals that we have for that experience of loss are very powerful and meaningful. But one of the challenges is that when it's a different type of loss, whether the loss that is kind of communally felt by 1,200 people who were murdered in one day, or whether it's communal loss from the sense of security and relationship and all these other things, we don't have the rituals in our kind of a toolkit of Judaism just to kind of say, well, this is what we do in this situation. And we've talked about that need, I think, and maybe you'd like to say something about it, but that need to kind of ritualize moments in our lives and how powerful that can be.
I don't know of a ritual. The only thing that I can think of is that it is you use the word community, and it is a communal responsibility, and I think the vehicle is communal. We can't do it alone as individuals.
So building on that communal in terms of thinking maybe about the community, in this post-October 7th world that we're living in, one of the things that often we've ended up talking about is what we would kind of invest in the Jewish community if we had that choice. It's one of those recurring themes that seems to come up each year when we're sitting up here, of where we would direct the resources in the Jewish community. And I'm wondering where you would direct them today, given, I mean, it's such a drastically different world to when we sat up here a year ago. It feels night and day in that respect.
It's funny that you asked the question quite that way, because I thought about it as we were leaving this morning. I think we have to double down our ability to, our education as Jews. I think we have to understand Judaism on a much, much, much deeper level. I think through text study, and to come to understand what Jewish ritual and Jewish prayer, how it can be a scaffold for our lives. I don't think we have it now, quite frankly. I think it's growing. Interestingly, I think that the Musar program here is extraordinary, and it's that kind of effort. I really, really do. But until we have, I don't want to say educated Jews, it's more than education. You can go to a university and learn all the Judaica that you need, but somehow to take the material, the source material, the richness of Jewish thinking and Jewish struggling with problems, and see where we fit into it. And I think it has to result in stronger Jewish identity and stronger Jewish experience, in a life cycle experience and ritual experience. Let me say it another way, and this is kind of revelatory. I think we have to become better Jews, okay? Not only educationally, but in terms of our lifestyle. I really think that one of the answers to anti-Semitism and to the earthquake in our thinking about Israel and Israel itself is to be better Jews. I think that we have a long way to go. I want to say, I think that the Reform movement has done an extraordinary job in the last, I'm going to say, 100 years, that long, in stemming assimilation and bringing so many of us into the Jewish world. We would have been lost. I would have been lost, I'm sure, was it not for the youth movement, and Paula and I experienced that together. And we became Jews through the movement. And most of us, I think, would have not been there. But we're at a different place now. And the richness of Jewish tradition is something that we have to grab onto. And let me just go on for another minute. I'm going to use my grandson as an example. It's very interesting. He grew up in a Jewish home, Lexington, the Reform Synagogue, a youth group, and all that's there. In college, he became involved in Hillel, and that was important to him. When he made a career decision, he decided on the rabbinate. That's a longer story that I'm not going into. And he did not choose Hebrew Union College. He had.
My wife was on the recruitment team at the time. I was very disappointed in that decision.
And the reason why was that he had the sense that either the Hebrew College or the Jewish Theological Seminary would give him a deeper understanding of traditional classic Jewish material, Talmud, Midrash, Hasidic material, and the like. And that's where he's going. I don't think he is a card-carrying, I won't say that. I don't know what kind of a Jew he will turn out to be, but it will not look like a garden variety conservative Jew, I'm sure. And it certainly won't look like the garden variety Reform Jew. There's something new, something deeper, something richer that he's searching for and finding, and the text material is, I think, a vehicle for him to get there.
I think working backwards with some of the things that you shared, I think it is interesting to kind of reflect on the JTS, the Jewish Theological Seminary where he's at, that has a specific expectation not just about the learning, but about the religious observance that goes into attending the program. There is a commitment one is making to live a certain style of life. And I think that's one of the reasons Hebrew College has proved to be a very popular destination for a lot of rabbinic students recently, because of the text opportunity, but not necessarily the formal conservative Jewish commitment. But it's an interesting...
Yeah, absolutely.
And
excuse me, Hebrew College, the rabbinical school, is more attractive to most students today than either HUC or JTS. It has the larger classes. JTS and HUC are diminished.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting reflection on where we are. And as you were talking about the leaning into our Judaism, I think Cantor Hollis mentioned on October 7th, there were obviously a number of editorials relating to Jewish identity and Judaism and the Jewish community. And I think it was Deborah Lipstadt, Cantor Hollis referenced, who'd said that one of the things to do is that we can't allow our Judaism to be defined by anti-Semitism. We can't allow anti-Semitism to be the kind of number one thing we are learning about, responding to, or engaging with. Try Shabbat. Try doing something Jewish as well as kind of part of that ritual. And I think there's an interesting question as we talk about the place of Reform Judaism and the 100 years and what it did. One of the things that's being discussed, at least in the Reform circles, is Reform Judaism's emphasis on the universal at the expense of the particular. By that, I think a lot of Reformed Jewish community is focused on kind of our universal obligations. What do we need to do for the world, for the betterment of this, that, and the other? And there are some who have argued that in focusing on the universal, we have neglected the particular, and at this moment, in this new world that we're living in, we are seeing the way in some of our children that the universal is the sacred object, if you will, and the particular has been lost in that kind of sense of our own relationship with our community, with our country in terms of Israel, and with other things in that regard. And I wonder if you'd have any reflections on that with your thinking about the community.
Well, the only thing that I would say is that the the left of the political spectrum includes many Jews who are very critical of Israel and really of Jewish life. And I think that that reflects their grabbing onto the universal values and running with them. And incidentally, those universal values are very much synonymous with American civic values. And that too has been cracked wide open, or potentially cracked wide open, and that's of concern. So becoming rooted, solidly rooted in our own tradition is really an answer to all of these issues.
And I think one of the things that we've definitely seen here, and is I think seen generally in the Jewish community, has been people engaging with their Judaism in greater numbers and in different ways this year as one of the responses, that the attendance at various things, I think many synagogues are reporting increased attendance at various religious observances in that way of one of the things we do is we lean into our Judaism, into our community. And I mean, I think that the sense of this space was filled in a way that it hasn't been in recent years.
Awesome.
Both morning services and
awesome.
Kol Nidre, which is great.
Yeah. You may get to the point where you have to have 2 adult services.
Yeah, there are questions we're going to have to discuss in the office about what we do next year, but that's a next year problem. So I wanted to ask a very different question that and I'm springing this one on you completely. But one of the reflections that I saw yesterday morning was the fact that this would be the second Yom Kippur when Israel is at war that we are experiencing. It was 50 years ago when there was the Yom Kippur War. And beyond my frame of reference in that way, but I was wondering just in terms of if you had any reflections on that sense of Israel at war versus this time of Israel at war, anything that you'd want to say, because it does feel it's 50 years. And it was just one of those things that I think it was a Times of Israel article, I don't recall where I saw it, but it was really, it just shook me, that idea of that was the last time that Yom Kippur involved the war. Now, of course, that time the war started on Yom Kippur, and we were finding out about it in the service. But
it's fascinating that you ask that question, because somewhere in the last 12 to 18 hours, I thought to myself, it's Yom Kippur, could it happen again? Mm-hmm. I mean, it was that was visceral. Mm-hmm. That was such a different experience somehow. Many of us were concerned for Israel's survival. We thought it could just disappear in a catastrophic war. And I think the Jewish community in general, and certainly I with it, just went all out, to do everything we could to support Israel. No holds barred, no question. This was I can't think of the right expression that I want to use, but it was visceral. Mm-hmm. And we worried. And I was a young rabbi, and we were in Rhode Island at that time, and I was the social justice rabbi.
And almost shocked that had to be there.
And I was in the middle of the war. I went to a meeting. It was an interracial something and other at some YMCA. And I sat there, and I left the radio, or the radio, I think, listening to every news report to go to this meeting. And I left my heart at the radio. And I sat in the meeting, and I knew I didn't want to be there. Mm-hmm. And I looked around the room, and I said to myself, there's nobody in this room who has any sense of what I am feeling at this moment. That was the depth of my estrangement, distance, a better word, from the American world that I had been living in. And that changed me as a Jew. I think that really changed me as a Jew. It made me much more I can't think of the right word, but you know what I'm saying.
I think it's interesting to consider that I think we've had similar experiences in various interfaith spaces in this last 12 months of being in those spaces and conversations taking place around subjects that they're not feeling that sense of, we're carrying a weight that's not felt by anyone else.
Yeah. But at the same time, my feelings about Israel, the conflict is extraordinary for me personally. I can only speak for myself. Deep concern, anger, fear for Israel's survival, and for people there, individuals. And at the same time, extraordinary anger at what I see as the distorted sense of what Israel should be and what being a Jew should be. I'm not sure I want to go into that any further, but I will acknowledge that I carry a lot of very conflicting feelings, not about the war, but about Israel and its future.
I mean, it is worth noting that when we sat here last year, when we talked about Israel, it was in the context of the protests that were taking place about the judicial reform bills and the kind of efforts by some to kind of, depending on your perspective, but remove some of the kind of legal safeguards that Israel had and to take it in a certain direction that many of us, I think, or I'll own, that I myself was worried about in terms of what Israel would look like without those safeguards and protections. And that was the discussion around Israel. And it was a fear of, at that point we were talking about, would Israel survive as a Jewish democratic state in that way, with the kind of emphasis being on balancing the Jewish and the democratic at the same time. And this year, maybe there's still some of that in there in terms of the type of parties and government that Israel has today, but also in terms of the issue seems, the judicial reform, while it still keeps kind of coming up every few months in Israel as something that could still be discussed, is so not the issue that it today, whereas last year that was the main thing we talked about in relation to Israel in this specific space at this time of day on Yom Kippur.
Could you live with an Israel that was basically a theocratic entity? I'm sorry. He saves that as his question that he asks after no questions.
I think the truth is that
was a very gentle question.
But yeah, I think as someone who, I mean, as many know, that as an Israeli with an Israeli passport and with many family over there, I think that the direction of the current government that it was taking and some of the policies that were being practiced are very worrying for what type of Israel we will have and the type of Israel that we can have a relationship with as not just specifically Reform Jews, but as kind of anyone in the liberal, non-Orthodox Jewish world, essentially, with the kind of Judaism that they're pursuing. And I do think that it is of concern of some of the agendas of some of the people who are in the current government and what they're seeking to do at this moment in various directions. And that does worry me, because Israel already, I think, is challenging for us as Reform Jews in terms of it's the one country in the world where I couldn't perform weddings. There may be some others, but in terms of the developed world, everywhere else, either of us could perform a wedding and do our jobs. In Israel, we couldn't do our jobs in the same way. We are not allowed to in that respect, and that's troubling as the base point that we start from, and then thinking about some of the other people and influences. I think it is fascinating to have seen the reawakening of the Israeli secular society. And I think, and I've always thought, that we in the Reform world have a lot more in common with that Israeli secular society than we have ever allowed ourselves to fully investigate and explore. And I think it's one of the big misses and losses, and something that I hope, as we can develop here, a more of a relationship with the Israeli community in the greater Boston area. But I think that their awakening to the threat to Israel, both through the judicial process, and now it morphed almost overnight from, and I think I shared it with the community, that I'm in a WhatsApp group with my family in Israel who were sending weekly photos from going to the protests against the judicial reforms, and there was a couple of weeks gap, and then it was weekly photos of going to the protests for the hostages. And it's very interesting to see how that same group, and what that says about the division in Israeli society, is the one that is now standing outside. And I think there is a real question for us and I'm avoiding answering your question, but there's a question for us in terms of how do we from America and from the American Jewish community support, if we believe that, those in the secular Israeli society who are out there on the streets and are opposing the government in much of what they say. I think it's easier to oppose the government over there as an Israeli than it is for us over here to say maybe similar things, or kind of offer the full-throated support for some of those issues, because it gets complicated about how that's perceived and other things, even if we do have issues with the government and policies that they're pursuing.
I guess I have to answer my own question, don't I? I think, firstly, Israel is not the place where I don't think I would ever live there. Well, no, I can't say that, can I? Living in Israel is not in my future. So I can't really talk about it. But theoretically, even if it was a theocratic state, I think that I would be vigorously supportive of those people within the state who were opposing it and attempting to change it. Because beneath the political entity, there is the land of Israel and the Jewish people there who deserve to have a Jewish state which practices good values of social justice and the like. So my loyalty to Amcha, I'm big on Amcha, the Jewish people, and Amcha in Israel. I would find a way to be supportive of it, even if its political entity was an anathema to me.
I think that, which I think raises an interesting question for us as a community, which might be about how do we engage with supporting those voices in Israel who are supporting the kind of things and the kind of Israel that we would like to see Israel be, and maybe opposing some of the things that we would ourselves oppose potentially as also.
Well, I think that's not a question, for some hopefully not distant future, but I think it's a question for us today. I think particularly for those of us who love Israel but are critical of the government, to give our very, very strong financial and moral support to those forces in Israel that are will push real hard against the radical right and against governments that we think are unseemly at best. I think that's one of the solutions right now, one of the things that we can do. And I don't know if that happens. I don't see that happening in a terribly deliberate way at this point.
So what we always try to open it up to questions, and as with these kind of opportunities, Alison very kindly will be coming around with the microphone, and the one request that we always make, and sometimes adhere to, sometimes not, is please do try to keep questions brief and to actually have questions, and then we will try to respond. And we only have about 20 minutes or so at the most, so hopefully we can get a few questions in. But if someone does have a question, please do raise your hand, and Alison's going to come around, and we'll do our best to answer.
Is it on? Yeah. Keeping it brief, back before you started talking about Israel, you were talking about what we need to do as Jews here in order to, become more Jewish as a community, and you were talking about studying. I'm also interested in your thought about the doing Jewish in public, being out there and doing Jewish things and acting and behaving Jewish, as opposed to just the studying part of it.
When you say in public, I don't know, do you mean in the general community?
In outside of our synagogue here. So you were saying that the importance of studying is as part of identity, and one of the things that I'm curious about is also the activities and the behaviors that we do when we go outside of here. And I picture this logo of a shofar that says just do it on it, and that's what's in my mind when you said that. So that's why I'm asking.
Well, just to start, I think that Shabbat observance is very important, and I think Shabbat observance, including the rituals around Kabbalat Shabbat, but finding in our lives ways of being observant of Jewish tradition. I'm not saying we should not turn on the lights, but I am saying can we make Shabbat a different kind of day as much as possible, and allow the rhythm of the Jewish calendar on a weekly basis to permeate our lives. It's not just another day, and it's not just lighting a candle. It's a mentality of what do you do or what do you not do in that day. Short of becoming Shomrei Shabbat, there's a lot that we can do. I think the same thing goes for kashrut. Short of being having to get all your foodstuffs at the butchery and and having to, 2 kitchens essentially, to have a personal observance that refrains from, I'll spell it out in terms of my own practice, pork products and shellfish, not mixing milk and meat. I don't, for the most part, I only eat kosher beef. I try only to eat kosher chicken. So I have personally become more Jewish in that way. And it's something that I'm aware of every time I sit down to eat. Mm-hmm. And particularly now we're living in a retirement community where fortunately there are lots of choices, including vegetarian choices. But there's a lot of stuff that I wouldn't touch. Mm-hmm. And every time I do that, and this isn't new for me, this has been most of my, virtually all of my career. This has been a way of expressing my Jewish identity, and it becomes more powerful. Those are 2 specific things. I think our concept of tzedakah, building that into our lives in a more vigorous way. At one point I was going to say in a sermon that I of course never gave was, we're a wealthy community, but do we really support causes in a significant way?
I think you just volunteered to do another sermon is what I heard.
No. It's just, it's, Danny, someday you're going to retire and you're going to have the same thing. You're going to have all these sermons that I want to have.
Anytime you want to give the sermons, you just let me know.
And the other thing is, and it relates to study, the study is not an academic study. It's helping to look at ourselves. And the more we look at ourselves and look at ourselves through a lens of Jewish spirituality, I think the better people will be as Jews.
I think we have another question.
Sure. No, it won't make a difference.
Danny, last week in your sermon, you gave us the message that for the past year, we as a Jewish community have been on defense. And enough of that, we're now going on offense. And for example, you said, we're going to define what's anti-Semitism. We're not going to let others define what that is for us. But my question is for you, and obviously for Herman too, what other action steps were you thinking about that we should be now taking?
So I think that there are a number of areas where we've kind of been responsive in that regard this past year of whatever it might have been. And I think there's a lot of proactive work that we need to be doing in terms of responding to the anti-Semitism that we're seeing out there and being proactive in that to make sure that people know that we're the address that they should be reaching out to if they have a question rather than scheduling something. I mean, there's so much that needs to be done there that we can be the ones setting the agenda for the conversation rather than waiting for others. I think that's definitely one part of it, because I think that I will say personally, there was an awareness that there was some anti-Semitism on college campuses. There was an awareness of some of the things that have happened in the last 6 to 8 years in our society. I don't think I personally had realized just how kind of far the tentacles of anti-Semitism had spread on the extreme right and on the extreme left in the way that they then actualized in the aftermath of October 7th. And I think now we know. And so while last year we could say, oh, we were caught unaware when this happened in a school or when that happened in a college campus, we can't say that this year. This year, we knew we're anticipating when it happens on a certain level. And so this year, to just anticipate it isn't enough. We have to kind of proactively go out there and make sure that people are aware that we are watching and we are aware of what's happening and trying to kind of stifle this spread, because I worry that there are elements of the anti-Semitism that has become, and I think I said this at one point in a sermon several years ago, but the danger of anti-Semitism becoming acceptable in society. And it might not be that it's acceptable in society as a whole, but there are certain areas of society today where anti-Semitism is acceptable. And I think we on a certain level always anticipated or expected that on the extreme right. I think that was where we kind of knew that was underlying some of the things, and when would it turn on us? I think the shock for many has been in the kind of left and where it is on the left in that way. But when we think about some of these encampments, some of the things that go on there, I'm sure there are some things that go on there that are legitimate and have reason for them. But then there's other pieces that clearly, when you're blocking Jewish students from getting to class, that's anti-Semitic. When there's a targeting on Jewish faculty, that's anti-Semitic. There are certain things that we need to be much clearer, I think, in calling these things out and making sure that that these safe spaces are safe again for Jewish kids and Jewish students. And it's that kind of broader thing. I think Rabbi Blumberg brings a really interesting perspective that maybe one of the other ways we go on the offense is engaging with our Judaism, that another response is becoming more kind of connected Jewishly and engaged Jewishly. I think that's important. I don't know that affects the outside world yet. And for at least the sermon, my focus was on the kind of external focus in that way.
I would just add another kind of aggression is in working with our young people and better preparing them to be Jews.
Yeah. The one other thing, just the last comment that I would make, that I think one of the things and Alison can speak to this, Jenna can speak to this, I think we've been struck by our teens and they're now not all teenagers, but the ones who've gone off to college, the way that they are still so connected to their Jewish identity despite these challenges, I think is a real testament that there are ways to kind of feel a Jewish center and a Jewish connection despite some of the challenges that they're experiencing. And I think how we can do more of that is something that we're discussing with various partners at the moment. We have a conversation with AJC next month about our teen program specifically and helping prepare our young people for being Jewish on campus in that way.
How do the different branches of Judaism, Reform, Orthodox, Conservative, Reconstruction, how does the leadership communicate with the other, and how do they support one another today? Because it seems like the focus here, and of course we have a Reformed community, but I think and hope that we look broader than just ourselves to all the Jews in America and around the world.
So I think the question was about how do the different streams of Judaism kind of cooperate with each other or work together. I think on the leadership level, I think there is definitely significant exchanges in the kind of organizations of presidents and various organizations that bring the streams and the other Jewish organizations together. On the local level, we meet as clergy and support one another, and there are various times where Rabbi Lisa and I are on emails with our Chabad colleague, with our conservative colleague, and with everyone else, so that we do try and support one another in this way. And I think some of the things that we are worrying about are similar. Some of the things we have slightly different approaches or flavors of approach to responding to that situation, and I think that's been interesting to see. But when it comes to, for example, we recently, the most recent anti-Semitic thing that we dealt with in Shir Tikva was there was going to be a spiritual center in Natick was holding a gathering on October 7th that was problematic in terms of the description and was not appropriate to be gathering like this peace gathering on the day when we're mourning. Before reaching out to the spiritual center, we reached out to our conservative colleague in the town to check in and see what was going on there before we then took action and thankfully got them to move it to October 8th. Rather, they didn't do it, but they did it. They were never going to not do it, but at least it wasn't October 7th. So in those kind of ways, we do reach out to one another and support one another. And when we gathered here to have our gathering in November because of the swastika against anti-Semitism, we had Reform colleagues from Framingham, we had Conservative colleague, we did that with Oratid, we invited them to be part of it from the very beginning, and the Chabad rabbi from Sudbury came along. So I think there is that kind of cooperation, especially in responding to these situations, but there's a nice dynamic and engagement that I think dates back to when Rabbi Blumberg was here in terms of colleagues and trying to support one another in the work that we're doing.
I have the sense that there's a lot more behind your question that we should discuss.
There are people at home, though.
No, I think it's for the live stream.
I just want to make a comment and talk about Jewish identity and the youngsters. I love the way you started this sermon today. I'm a Camp Bowercrest alumni. I've been involved with it for over 60 years, and how important it is because unfortunately parents these days are not going to be the ones responsible for their children's Jewish identity, but how important it is for these camps to have children come in. And again, we operate our camp on a sliding scale because you can't send 3 of your children to camp at $8,000 apiece. So I just wanted to thank you for starting out your sermon with that. It was very, very important. And a question to you, have you ever heard of the song, Hello Mother, Hello Father?
Okay. One thing I will just note that I did write about the experience because I tend to write about everything that I experience because that's the way I process. But the being at summer camp this year and seeing the kind of Jewish symbols, I saw more of these dog tags and more Stars of David at the Crane Lake camp, which is the camp that my family is connected to, than I've ever seen before. And it was very clear that camp was safe Jewish space for our young people, in a way that the temple is as well, but in a 24/7 kind of environment. And I'm sure the same was at Eisner Camp as well, which is the one that Rabbi Blumberg and Paula are connected to. And I think that whatever we can do to support our kids and young people getting to camp as one of their formative Jewish experiences, that's a priority. And there is the Rabbi Herman and Paula Blumberg Fund to support young people going to camp as well, just to put in a little plug as part of the temple. But it's something that we definitely see the importance of and recognize. We have probably time for one more question, if there is one more. And if there isn't, we can just, Marilyn. Oh, we have one at the front. Alison, Marilyn has a question.
I'm a little hesitant to bring this up, but I will anyway. I read a book last spring about the cognitive dissonance that American Jews, in particular, are suffering, or I'm not, before September 7th, with the recognition that the Israel of their dreams and of their Hebrew school in the 20s and 30s was not quite the Israel that they have now. And several groups of people are really brokenhearted about it. And I, as someone who grew up in a synagogue from the time I was 2, was one of those people, and so are my friends. And so when you talk about the suffering, I really suffered. I was really in the depths all year long about this. And I adore Israel. I've been 5 times. But the answers of making Judaism stronger by learning Hebrew, going to camps, going to Israel, and doing all those things, I don't think it answers the question. I think there's more to us that involves looking at some of the more painful sides of Israel's history. And I don't get very far. It's hard to have a conversation about it. Most of my friends and I feel the same way, but don't talk about it with other groups of people because it can be very upsetting. But I think that's as important a place to lay a stake as strengthening our own Judaism.
So just to make sure, so the comment question was in relation to the cognitive dissonance between the way that we were educated about Israel and the type of Israel that we were presented over years and the Israel that we experience today, and the kind of pain of some of that, that disconnect and that dissonance, I guess. I don't know if you want to go first.
I can only tell you that that's the issue, and I think we have to talk more and more together about it.
So some of my reflection on that, there are a few things. One, I think it's been very interesting in the post-October 7th world to think about where we got Israel education right, potentially, but also where we really got it wrong. And one of the reflections that I keep having is, which doesn't answer this question, but I'll relate it in a second, but when people asked about Jews in Israel, we always would talk about the expulsion of Jews from the Arab lands as our kind of, when they talked about the Palestinians who weren't there, that was our response, but all these Jews were in Iraq and in Iran and all these other places. We failed to actually talk about the indigenousness of the Jewish people to the land of Israel. We missed that argument, and that's part of the reason why today you have this kind of perceived indigenous claim versus settler, colonial, whatever terminology someone wants to use, because what we should have said is Jews have been in Israel for thousands of years, and we finally realized the national kind of aspiration that we'd held on for those years in that way. We missed the question in that respect. And I think when it comes to the portrayal of Israel, one of the things we obviously need to do is we need to be more honest about what Israel is and educate about Israel collectively and wholly. But I think that it goes back to something that Rabbi Blumberg said, which is about Amcha and the personal connection. I think the thing that we haven't done a good enough job of is connecting to the people over there so that we recognize we are part of this one Jewish family. And that's where I think that particular verse is that universal. There needs to be some form of re-engagement with that. Because I think when we feel that we have a personal connection to the people, it's not about this country and this state and this government. It's about Omri. It's about Lior. It's the people. It's my uncle, my aunt, and all these other people that we have a relationship with, and that changes the dynamic. And I think that's a way that we can see Israel through their eyes, where I can tell you a lot of Israelis have lots of the problems with Israel and lots of the issues. I mean, as upset as we might think we might be sometimes with the government, you speak to my uncle for an hour and you'll hear someone who's even more upset about the government and the various things that are going on there. And I think we've lacked that personal connection, but I think you're right that we need to kind of find a new way to do Israel education and to connect with Israel that speaks to the truth of Israel, but also honors the relationship that we want to have, not necessarily with a government, but with the people and the land, I think, the things that Rabbi Blumberg referenced.
I don't want to comment on that further. I just want to say, almost in closing, that your rabbi has an extraordinarily difficult job, and I'm glad he's the senior rabbi and I'm not. And I mean that with all I mean the first part of that with all my heart. To be a rabbi today is incredibly difficult. Be kind to him.
So I don't think I'm going to say anything else other than thank you, Rabbi Blumberg, as always, for being part of this. We will be beginning our afternoon service in just a few minutes, so we will reset the bimah. Please pick whatever seat you would like, and services will be starting in just a few minutes.
I don't know that she was here. You know, just a second pair of ears. Yeah, that would be very helpful. He's going lower. Silent wrangle. He is very nice now.
Thank you for adjusting to my, because it's all that, but for me, it's just like, I need to find, where am I going to find breath? Where you find this?
Yeah, we should be, guys, let's get in one row and
Yeah.
just be together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I don't think there's more than 9.
David and, right, so two big sisters.
Whoever's light has to sit in the back.
What's that?
Whoever's light has to sit in the back.
Yeah, that's right. But I was driving the middle.
I may take one because it's
Okay. You're welcome. Let me see my hands work. Okay.
You're there Wednesday.
They did. They really did.
Yeah, you know, it's funny that the kids with no practice anything with that tone. It's like,
Beautifully in tune, very musical.
just so great.
So,
singing a huge amount.
I was kind of wishing that they would have played for a lot more stuff, but you know, I didn't quite know the.
You're lucky on the bottom.
I don't know why we've been doing this. We're too tired to even sing. So why do we need extra microphones? We don't. Let's just leave this as it is. Okay, I'm gonna sit up here because I'm gonna. So I think tenors should be in the middle and then basses on the other side. I mean, so basically Dan move in and then let's have
Tenors on this side, tenors on this.
tenors on this side. Close to one. I'm gonna be a tenor today. Okay. Unless y'all are freaking out. I don't know. I just. Vivian's in charge of this one. I don't even make any, I make no attempts to be on this. Yes.
So each 29 business.
Yeah, they were very great.
Actually, what I was just thinking I could have done is I could have put this apart so that I could list it down where the 25. Actually, it might be.
I don't know what 26 is.
Since it's not a thing.
Okay.
So it's going to arrive.
Space for the alternators.
It just moves again. That's fine. That works. We may be able to, I mean, I don't want to like, why would people choose to sit over here? They'll sit over there. They'll just sit over there. This is our area. Sorry. Does anybody have that? What? Good enough.
So what I did was I found it. Well, I could just rip this off and then I could just put it right. So Rachel, you did alto.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought it was.
What is it?
39.
39?
39. What's that?
39.
I had it at home.
I do. I love me.
Oh, wow. Can you move that one?
Is that how it goes? Yes, it's fine. I don't know. We follow along. We just do whatever we do.
Let's see, it's yeah, so we get the thing that I have. So we get the 62, it's really, oh, right.
David, you want to do that with him? David. What? You brought in the logo. You want to do that with him? Sure. For October.
Oh, yeah.
More of these? Yes. It's the afternoon service. I'll be in the
Which version?
No, this one, David. Oh, I know that you are the only two members, so that's. Look at us dominating over here. Maybe we should be in the second row. Maybe we're two.
Okay, that's what I did earlier today, so that's fine.
What do you do? Do you
I
guys
figured it out as I went
choir
along.
people?
It's been the first time
Do
ever.
you think we should move to the back row since there's too many people? I think it'll look funny having empty seats in front of us. That'd be weird, you're right. No, just sit here. People just have to not sit over here.
Do you want me to move down? I can move. Is there anyone else
It would
expecting?
be nice if we weren't so tight, but we could also smack. There. Just make a little more space so we're not like touching each other. Since like some people are sick today and
No. Pitchuli Sharet Tzedek, open the gates, is the theme of our afternoon. Welcome back to Temple Shir Tikva. I would like to share this poem called Jonah and Noah by Jacqueline Jules as an opening for our afternoon service. In the last hours of Yom Kippur, as I sit with a rumbling stomach, reflecting on regrets, I read the story of Jonah, that prophet who ran away when asked to save a city, who refused divine request. How does he compare to the story Jews read a few weeks later about Noah, a man who never questioned God, who simply picked up a hammer to do as he was told? Two men from the Torah with rhyming names, one said yes, the other no. Jonah didn't want to try. Noah didn't see a choice. Who will I be as this stormy year unfolds? The one who sits in the belly of a whale, clutching anger, frustration, and fear? Or the one who finds wood and builds a ship to survive the oncoming flood? We begin on page 329 with the singing of Adonai, Adonai.
Baruch Eloheinu Shipranu Kvodo.
Baruch Eloheinu Shipranu Kvodo. Baruch Eloheinu Shipranu Kvodo. Kvodo.
Hodapam, Hodapam,
Kvodo.
Hodapam, Hodapam,
Kvodo. Baruch Eloheinu Shipranu Kvodo. Kvodo.
V'hivti lanu min hatoim.
V'hivti lanu min hatoim.
V'hivti lanu min hatoim, min hatoim. Hodapam, Hodapam,
Min hatoim.
Hodapam, Hodapam,
Min hatoim.
V'hivti lanu min hatoim, min hatoim. V'natan lanu Torat emet.
V'natan lanu Torat emet.
V'natan lanu Torat emet, Torat emet. Hodapam, Hodapam,
Torat emet.
Once again,
Torat emet.
V'natan lanu Torat emet, Torat emet. V'chaye olam nat b'tachenu.
V'chaye olam nat b'tachenu.
V'chaye olam nat b'tachenu, b'tachenu. Hodapam, Hodapam,
B'tochenu.
Hodapam, Hodapam.
B'tochenu.
V'chaye olam nat b'tachenu, b'tachenu.
You may be seated. For our Torah reading today, we're reading an excerpt of Parsha Kedoshim. In this Parsha, God tells the Israelites, "You shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy." The commands that follow set up expectations that affect all aspects of our lives. Relational expectations, the instruction to respect our parents, for example. Logistical expectations, how to offer sacrifices. Ethical expectations, leaving the corners of our fields for the poor and the stranger, or not standing idly by the blood of our neighbor. So as we read this parsha on Yom Kippur, we might feel inclined to notice that a lot of these instructions are in the lo ta'aseh format, or the negative commandments, what we're not to do. We may feel like these lo ta'asehs are a high order, or that they're somewhat punitive. But I want to return for a second to just the beginning of this parasha. You shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. We begin with these truths that we are holy. These guidelines affirm our own closeness with God and seek to bring us and God into sync, into harmony in our behavior and our ethics and our care for others and our care for ourselves. So we can undergo this hard work knowing that from the beginning, we're holy. So it is my pleasure to call up the members of our Re'im community for an aliyah. You can join us up at the bima. Come. Members of our Re'im community. Re'im. And our Torah readers also Bob Foster, Matt, and Stella. The Torah reading is on page 338. Yay. Right. Everyone ready? Blessing. Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Vadaber Adonai el Moshe lemor. Daber el kol adat b'nei Yisrael ve'amalta alechem kedoshim tihu ki kadosh ani Adonai Elokeichem. Ishimo ve'aviv tiru ve'et shavtotai tishmeru ani Adonai Elokeichem. Al tifnu el ha'Elokeichem ve'Elohei maseka lo tasu lakem ani Adonai Elokeichem.
Amen. Uvekutrachem et ketziratchem lo tekale ve'atzadecha liktur v'leket ketzircha lo telaked ve'kamacha lo teolel uferet kamcha lo telaked le'ani v'lager ta'azovotam Ani Adonai Elechem Lo Tignovu V'lo techakashu v'lo teshakru Ish be'amito V'lo tishavu v'ishmi L'shaker V'chilalta Et Shem Elohecha Ani Adonai Lo ta'ashok et re'acha V'lo tigzol Lo talin Kulat Zachir Itecha ad boker, lo ketalel cheresh, v'lifnei iver, lo titein b'ikshol, v'yarei tamei Elohecha ani Adonai, lo ta'atsu avel b'mishpat, lo tisa p'nei dal, v'lo tedar p'nei gadol, p'tzedek tishpot amitecha, lo telech rachil ba'amecha, Lo ta'amod al da'amrecha ani Adonai. Lo tisa et achicha b'yovavecha hocheach tochiach et amitecha v'lo tisa alav chet lo tikom v'lo titur et b'nei amecha v'yahavta l'reacha kamocha ani Adonai.
Amen. Mipnei sefatakum v'hadarta v'nei sekun v'yareta me Elohecha ani Adonai v'chiagur idhager partechem lo tonu otov ke'ezra michem yihi lahem hager hagar idchem v'ahavta lo kamocha Ki gerim titem be'eretz Mitzrayim Ani Adonai Eloheihem Lo ta'asu avel b'mishpat b'midah b'mishkal uv'amsura Ma'oznei tzedek avnei tzedek Epat tzedek v'hin tzedek yihyeh lahem Ani Adonai Eloheihem Asher hutziti etchem Eretz Mitzrayim, Ushmartem et kol hukotai, ve'et kol mishpatai, ve'asitem otam, ani Adonai.
We turn to page 340 for a prayer. Yes, you may be seated. We turn to page 340 for a prayer for those who are ill and givers of care. May the Eternal One who blesses all life bless and strengthen all of us who struggle against illness. May we, whose lives are touched by illness, be blessed with faith, courage, love, and caring. May we experience the support and sustenance of family, friends, companions, and community. May we be granted restful nights and days of comfort. We pray for refuah shlema, precious moments of healing, and a sense of wholeness in body and soul. May those who care for the sick with their hands, their voices, and their hearts be blessed with courage and stamina. May those who pursue healing through medical skill and knowledge be blessed with insight, patience, and compassion. May all of us, the sick and the well together, find courage and hope, and let us say, Amen.
Mi sheberach avotinu v'imotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, v'Leah, hu yivarach et hacholim, bavor shanu mitpalalim bavuram, HaKadosh Baruch Hu yimalei rachamim aleihem, lecha chalimam urabotam ulecha chazikam, וישלח להם מהרה רפואה שלמה מן השמיים, רפואת הנפש ורפואת הגוף, השתה בגלה ובזמן קריב, ונאמר אמן.
Please rise and face east. Just rise and face us.
The Haftarah, please be seated. The Haftarah may be found beginning with the blessings on page 342. It is a pleasure to invite Cantor Jeff Stock to lead us in the Haftarah and the blessings.
Gemar Chatima Tova. I will be chanting from the book of Jonah, chapter 2, verses 1 through 5. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nviim tovim v'ratzav v'divreihem hanemarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'Torah u'Moshe avdo u'Yisrael amo u'v'nevi'ei ha'emet v'atzedek. Vayman Adonai da gadol livloa et Yonah. Vayihi Yonah bim'ei hadag shlosha yamim u'shlosha lelot. Vayitpalel Yonah el Adonai Elohav mim'ei hadaga. Vayomer karati mitzara li el Adonai vaya'aneni mi beten sheol shivati shamata koli. Vatashlicheni mitzula bilevav yamim v'nahar yisoveveni. Kol mishbarecha v'galecha alai avaru. Va'ani amarti nigrashti mineged einecha ach osif lehabit el hechal kodshecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam tzur kol haolamim tzadik b'chol hadorot ha'el hane'eman ha'omer v'yoseh hamdaber u'mkayem shekol devarav emet v'tzedek. Al haTorah v'al ha'avodah v'al ha'neviim v'al yom ha'shabbat hazeh v'al yom ha'kippurim hazeh shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu likdusha v'limnucha limchila v'lislicha u'lechapara lechavod u'letifaret. Al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim lach umvarachim otach yitbarach shimcha befi kol chai tamid leolam vaed udvarcha emet v'kayam la'ad. Baruch atah Adonai melech mochel v'soleach la'avonotenu v'la'avonot amo beit Yisrael u'ma'avir ashmotenu b'chol shana v'shana. Melech al kol haaretz mekadesh ha'shabbat v'Yisrael. Melech al kol haaretz mekadesh ha'shabbat v'Yisrael. Melech al kol haaretz mekadesh ha'shabbat v'Yisrael v'yom ha'kippurim.
We turn back in our prayer books to page 352 and rise as we return the Torah to the ark.
Ayah
We remain standing, and on page 356, we continue with the Amidah. We continue in a moment of private prayer and meditation. When your prayer is complete, you may have a seat.
lefanecha. Adonai tzuri vegoali. Adonai tzuri vegoali.
We turn to page 510. Long ago, one word on the lips of one person in one place at one moment brought together 4 dimensions of the holy. When the high priest would enter the Holy of Holies on Yom Kippur and utter the name of God. And now, every place where we lift our eyes to God is a Holy of Holies. Created in the image of God, we are all high priests. Every day of our life lived in love is a Yom Kippur. Every word that we speak in truth is the name of God. We pray from the Holy of Holies in our hearts, our God and God of all generations before us. May it be your will in the coming year to grant us a year of abundance and atonement together, a year of blessings bestowed and received, a year of community and compassion,
A year of delight and exaltation.
a year of enlightenment, a year of friendship and forgiveness, a year of going up in gladness to the land of Israel,
A year of health and healing and humor.
a year of inner strength and well-being,
A year of joy and Jewish celebration.
a year of knowledge and learning for its own sake, a year of love between parents and children, friends and spouses, brothers and sisters, a year of mitzvot and moments of sweetness,
A year of nature
protected and enjoyed, a year of optimism and hope, a year of peace pursued with perseverance, a year of quiet and tranquility, a year of rain in its season, a year of song and spiritual growth, a year of Torah study and tikkun olam, a year of understanding and unity, a year of vows filled with
violence overcome.
a year of wisdom acquired and shared, a year of coexistence among the families of the earth, a year of young and old reaching out to one another, a year of Zion aglow.
Light for us and all the world.
Our God and God of all generations before us, grant us a year of gratitude to you for the most profound of blessings, your gift of life. Before we conclude with an instrumental setting of Pete Huli, I just want to remind you that in a few moments we will be beginning our Yizkor service, and that will go directly into Ne'ilah. We invite you with all of our hearts to remain and join us if you wish as we conclude this Yom Kippur together. We conclude with Pete Huli.
Before we begin our Yizkor service, we invite our ushers to go around with copies of the Yizkor booklets for people to follow along and to recall the names that are remembered. We begin our Yizkor service on page 540. On page 544, a woodpecker taps. First day of the year you did not live to see, foothills shrouded lightly in fog. Winter rain, waiting at the station for the tram that goes where you no longer are. These trees you photographed, why do I see only empty branches? So warm this winter of your death, beneath our chestnut tree a clump of snowdrops. Cold rain this first day of spring. I discard can after can of old paint, the plaid shirt you never wore. Soft rain high above the path we walked. A woodpecker taps and taps again. Whitman wrote, "Look for me under your boot soles," and I do. And you are. On page 552, Hem bilvad notru li, rak behem bilvad, lo yinatz hamavet, sakino hachad. They alone are left me, they alone still faithful, For now death can do no more to them. At the bend of the road, at the close of the day, they gather around me silently and walk by my side. This is a bond nothing can ever loosen. What I have lost, what I possess forever. On page 556, we continue with Essay 9. The courage that my mother had. The courage that my mother had went with her and is with her still. Rock from New England quarried, now granite on a granite hill. The golden brooch my mother wore, she left behind for me to wear. I have no thing I treasure more, yet it is something I could spare. Oh, if instead she had left me the thing she took into the grave, that courage like a rock which she has no more need of, and I have. On page 567, we have the words of Chana Senesh in her beautiful poem, Yesh Kochavim.
יש כוכבים שאורם מגיע ארצה, רק אשר הם עצמם עבדו ואינם.
There are stars up above so far away, we only see their light, long, long after the star itself is gone.
יש אנשים שזיו זכרם מאיר, כאשר הם עצמם אינם עוד בתוכנו.
And so it is with people that we loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done.
אורות אלה המבהיקים בחשכת
But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember.
הם שמראים לאדם את הדרך, את הדרך. הם שמראים לאדם את הדרך, את הדרך. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember, we remember. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember, we remember.
We now offer a selection of readings as part of our Yizkor service today in memory of October 7th. The diameter of the massacres by Rabbi Karen Bender. The diameter of the massacres was the length of Israel and the depth of the universe. It stretched to every continent, college campuses and social media. It spread information and disinformation, twisting and distorting morality and redefining madness. It wreaked havoc and wrecked lives in Israel and Gaza, in kitchens and living rooms, in bedrooms and porches, in souls and hearts. The diameter of the visit was the length of Israel, the distance to California, and everyone and everywhere we will speak of it. The mission stretched our compassion and minds and challenged our faith in human nature. It struck us with awe in every cell of our being as we saw the resiliency of our people and as we strove together to answer the unspoken question, where shall we place all the pain? We were messengers and witnesses, representatives with wishes to help, and we did and we will. The diameter of the hugs is the length of an Israeli flag and the width of a talit, large enough to enwrap every Israeli who hurts right now, and therefore every Israeli, with the comfort of our love and with a strand of techelet, turquoise, in the tzitzit, to remind us all that the morning will come and we will say the Shema someday with one voice.
A coat of many colors. My son returned from battle, his duffel bursting with things that I had not packed for him. Socks donated by the Jews in Argentina, a quilted blanket smelling like someone else's home, a blue towel from a family from a moshav, tzitzit from Jerusalem, a fleece jacket gifted by a high-tech company, a scarf knitted by an elderly lady, undershirts purchased by online shoppers, a sheet that was given to him by a friend, gloves bought by teenage girls, a jacket from the closet of someone who came and requested to give. I spread out all those garments and weave together a new coat of many colors. See, Yosef, your brothers were there for you.
Achenu, a prayer for freeing the captives. Our brothers and sisters, the whole house of Israel, who are in distress in captivity, who wander over sea and over land. May God have mercy on them and bring them from distress to comfort, from darkness to light, from slavery to redemption, now, swiftly, and soon. Amen.
Journalist Jesse Wegman tells this story, and I quote, "Off Route 6 on Cape Cod, a few miles in from the bay near Yarmouth, there hides a giant ancient English weeping beech tree. The tree is so big that it has its own parking lot, but you don't see it right away. You follow signs to a thick green curtain, push through, and suddenly you're on the other side, inside. Branches begin to close to the ground, snake upward and outward, and then reach back to earth, take root, and grow up again. The whole thing is enclosed by a long, trailing vine of leaves hanging all the way to the ground, creating a veil broken only by shards of sunlight. From outside, you can't see in. From within, you can't see out. For someone living on the edge of two worlds, as my mother did in the last grueling years of her life, it must feel like home." Wegman continues, My mother loved all trees, but this weeping beech was her favorite. On one of her last visits there when she was sick, she wrote in her journal, "I had a clear image that I had come out of the earth and that I had been born through this tree." Those passages stuck with me, and they are why each year on her yahrzeit, I go sit in a tree. Wherever I am on that November day, I head outside at a few minutes before 1:35, the moment my mother's breathing stopped. I've been doing this without fail since 2009. I set only 2 rules: phone off and hands on a tree. Wegman writes, I wait for my mother to join. I have no idea how long we spend there. Time is hard to measure when you're convening with the dead. Sometimes I tell her what happened over the last year: a marriage, a new job, a new kid, an illness, a news story she would have gasped at. I speak softly, but in a voice I remember. I address her as Mom, a word that defined my childhood, but that I haven't said out loud to anyone else for 15 years. And then, after this brief visit to the border between life and death, to the space between 2 worlds, I head back to work. End of quote. For me, this story touches the very essence of this day and this service. Yom Kippur in general and Yizkor specifically represent the point in time at which life and death meet. Each year we enter this space at Yizkor with the stories of our loved ones who, though physically not here, fill this room beyond capacity and keep us company with their lasting presence. Memory is the intermingling of life and death that we carry within us every day of our lives, but that today we share together as one community of rememberers. When we think of the people we have loved and lost, our memories do not generally come to us through a still photograph or timeline. Rather, by way of our senses and emotions, they come to us in a collage of thoughts and feelings that recall the words and images, textures and colors of not just what they did, but who they were. Writer Carol Saline wrote, and I quote, "This will be the 41st time I've said these prayers for my father, the most important man in my life. He took me to parades and double feature movies in 2 different theaters on the same afternoon. He instilled in me a love of books and language and a duty to give back to my community. He taught me to stand up straight. I've recited Yizkor 17 times for my mother, and I still want to call her every time I come home from a trip to report that I've returned safely. And for the last 12 years, I've prayed for my beloved baby sister. We had vowed to spend our old age in the same nursing home, side by side in our rocking chairs, but cancer prevented her from keeping her end of the bargain. Even after all these years, when the service ends, I will once again be sobbing, still surprised at how I can be so overwhelmed by grief. How true it is that death ends a life, but it does not end a relationship. This, my friends, is the Yizkor that we know. This is the transformational power that this hour holds to lift us up out of our grief and loss and into the realm of healing and wholeness. The Unatana Tokef describes it this way: V'tiftach et sefer hazichronot. You open the book of remembrance, and me'alav tikareh, and read from it. V'chotem yad kol adam bo. For our own hands have signed the page. We write the stories of those we love while they are alive, and we say Yisker to ensure that we do not ever forget. And just as we sculpt the memories of those whom we love, so too do we have our own creative license when it comes to our own days and years on earth. In a world in which so many things are beyond our control, Yizkor teaches us that we have choices, that the way in which we live our lives is up to us. Bachya ibn Pakuda wrote, "Days are scrolls. Write on them only what you want remembered." In a college commencement address a few years ago, Anna Quinlan said to the graduates, "You are the only person who has sole custody of your life, your particular life, your entire life. Get a life in which you are not alone. Find people you love and who love you. Send an email, write a letter, kiss your mom, hug your dad. Get a life in which you are generous. Look around at the azaleas in the suburban neighborhood where you grew up. Look at a full moon hanging in a black, black sky on a cold night. Consider the lilies of the field. Look at the fuzz on a baby's ear. Read in the backyard with the sun on your face. Learn to be happy. Think of life as a terminal illness, because if you do, you will live it with joy and passion as it ought to be lived." End of quote. Ironically, Yizkor is a masterclass in life, because when we live well, we increase the chances that we will die well too. We also learn to be more loving, more comfortable, more present in the face of those who are dying. The losses we sustain are so painful because they are meaningful. The more we love, the more it hurts to lose. Jesse Wegman continues the story about his mother and the tree. "We have since moved to the country and have a large, weeping English beech tree right in our backyard. And this time, for the first time in 15 years, I forgot to go meet my mother at the tree. There was no good excuse. It was a windy, snowy Monday. I was handling an assignment for work, and I lost track of the time. I didn't realize my oversight until the evening when I saw the yahrzeit candle I lit in the morning still burning. I feel guilty and desperate. I had failed to arrive at the appointed time and place. How long had she waited? This is my only physical connection to her, and I'd broken it. I was furious at myself. When you lose someone you love, people tell you about the importance of moving on from death, of emerging from the pain of loss. What they don't tell you about is the dread of finally arriving in that new place. The feeling is actually one of deep betrayal, that you have the luxury of forgetting, of waking up the next day. I did wake the next day, and I returned to the site of the tree. Out of the side of my eye, I sensed that something wasn't right. I turned to look. The entire west side of the beech tree in our yard was gone. I stared for a moment, not fully processing it. It had snapped off sometime the previous day, presumably from the weight of snow and ice. I ran over to it and pushed past the veil of bare branches. The central trunk had sheared off at exactly the place I would have been sitting. Irrational thoughts arise at times like this. Had I caused it to fall by forgetting about my date? And I had another unexpected feeling, anger. I was angry at the tree. It was supposed to be strong and whole, to stand for my mother in her absence. It had been perfect, and through its perfection, I had kept my connection to her, or at least to the person I remembered. Now it was just another broken thing, splayed and helpless in the dirt. Had my mother somehow protected me from being crushed by thousands of pounds of wood? I didn't believe that, but in anguish, I went back to her journal and reread the part about the beech tree. I remembered it being only one page. I was wrong. It went on for several pages. In those pages, she described her tears of grief at being unable to cure herself, at being powerless to protect the people she loved from losing her. And then she wrote, the image of the tree came back into her mind, and she started to laugh. I have never faulted the tree for being a tree and for not solving world hunger or ending global warming, she wrote. I understand that the tree cannot move from where it is planted. It cannot leave its situation. I identified with its battle-scarred body, as my body is also scarred. I realized that the only thing this tree can do is stand where it is, to be a tree, and to create a space of beauty and safe harbor around it. Someday it will be cut down or succumb to disease or old age, and the offspring that now dot its perimeter will have more room to grow. I felt this was my mission too, that I could not uproot myself from having cancer or run from the scarring effects of treatment. My only option, she wrote, was to bloom where I was planted, to create around me the most sheltering, expansive place that I could. There is nothing easy about death. There is nothing easy about the hardness of loss, the bitterness of grief, the hollowness of mourning those we love. There is nothing soft about being left behind, our fears of loneliness, words never spoken, promises left undone. And despite what they say when a loved one dies, time can never really heal us. Others can never truly console us. No matter how much time we spend preparing ourselves for the death of those we love, we can never adequately ready ourselves for that moment. There always will remain one more conversation, one more I love you, one unspoken gesture, one more page to write. In the final analysis, life and death are just messy. No matter how much we strive to finish those conversations, to die without regrets, to say goodbye to our loved ones, having finished all of our shared business, it would be unrealistic, perhaps inhuman, to expect this of ourselves or those whom we love. So instead, we must live life humanely, forgive ourselves and others, be gentle in our hard world of grief and loss, use our memories as sacred instruments of immortality, pronounce every word lovingly and tenderly. We must help one another live as much as we help one another die. We must recognize the precious gifts that each of us carry with us in this life and make sure that these gifts continue on through our loved ones. Like the weeping English beech tree, may we each stand as best as we can in our own place and live this life, for it may be all that we have. May we bloom where we are planted for as long as we are alive, bloom and bloom again. Held by the memories of our loved ones, may we be the sheltering presence for those who come after us. For this is our legacy, the scrolls on which we write the stories of our lives. Yizkor, we remember. Amen.
Blessed is the one who is far beyond all the blessing and hymns, the one who is far beyond all the praises and words of comfort that we speak in the world. And blessed are those who are now far beyond my words, my praise, my voice, even my silence. We invite you now into an opportunity for silent reflection, beginning with the words on the page of 586 and through 583, or the words on your heart. We continue on page 593 with the 23rd Psalm. We read the second paragraph of 595 together. God is my shepherd, I shall not want. God gives me rest in green pasture, guides me by the restful waters, refreshes my soul, directs me along straight trails for the sake of God's name. Even when I pass through the valley of ominous shadows, I am not frightened, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff calm me. You provide for me, even if there are enemies about. Your care exceeds all expectation. My cup overflows. Truly, a generous goodness will pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall be with God as long as I live.
In the prayer book of the High Holy Days, which evolved during the Middle Ages, Ele Ezkara, these I remember, was a moment of poignant identification with Jews of the past. Aldon Solvoy, a liturgist for today, wrote this Ele Ezkara after October 7th. Ele Ezkara, these I remember, the young and the old, the children, the mothers, the babies, the fathers, and I do not look away. The brutalized, the maimed, the assaulted, the raped, burnt alive, terrorized and tortured, killed and kidnapped, and I do not look away. Al eile ani vochia. For these I weep. In every age, in our homes and our villages, in the fields and on the streets, in our cities and our towns, death and terror stalk. Eini yorda mayim. My eyes flow like streams of water. For Re'im and Berry, for Pittsburgh and Toulouse, for Kfar Aza, Netiv HaAsara and Nachal Oz, for Mumbai and Colleyville, for Ofakim, Nir Oz, Nirim and Sderot, for Paris and Pawi, for Alumim, Zikim, Saiduk and Kisufim, for Hala and Overland Park, for Nir Yitzchak, Cholit and Sufa, for every community in every generation. Ele Ezkara, these I remember. But how can I remember what was stolen? The loves lost, the dreams lost. Scientists, poets, artists, visionaries, leaders, learners, teachers of Torah, the generations lost. The children of children and theirs, never to be. Ele Ezkara, v'nafshi alai eshpacha. These I remember. I pour out my soul from within me, and I call out, Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum v'Chanun. God, God, compassionate and gracious, remember us.
We rise for El Malay Rachamim. On page 598.
El Malay Rachamim, Shochan Mamromim, Hamitzim en Chanechona, Tachat Kanfei HaShechina, Im Kedoshim Utehurim Kezohar Harakeha Mazhirim Lenishmot Yakirenu Shel Halchu Shalom al mishkavam v'nomar Amen.
Merciful God, God Most High, let there be perfect rest for the souls of our loved ones who have gone into eternity. May they find shelter in your presence among the holy and pure, whose light shines like the radiance of heaven. Compassionate God, hold them close to you forever. May their souls be bound up in the bound of life eternal. May they find a home in you, and may they rest in peace. Together we say, Amen. You may be seated. The Mourner's Kaddish, an Aramaic prayer that blesses and praises God's name, is recited in honor of and in service to those who have passed on. Traditionally, the Kaddish is said for a year after a beloved one has passed and on the anniversary of this death, the yahrzeit. But what does the Kaddish do? The prayer, oddly, doesn't mention death or ephemerality. A Jewish funeral in Hebrew is called a levaya, also the word for accompaniment. We accompany them on their way. So too, we say the Kaddish to accompany our loved ones for a safe passage in this next mysterious step. With these words, we draw close to our beloveds of blessed memory as we lovingly walk them on their way. We join family and friends in remembering our fellow Temple Share Tikva community members on page 22 of your supplement: Charles Wiesinga, Mark Lampert, Ellen Messing, Stephen Oppenheimer, and Alan Robbins. Please rise in body or spirit for the Mourner's Kaddish on page 606. ויתקדש שמי רבה, ועלמא תברח חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומייכון וחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה בזמן קריב אמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקדושה בריחו. לעילה ולעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום, עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל יושבי תבל, ואמרו אמן.
As we mark the transition from Yizkor into Ne'ilah, we'll conclude this service with the singing of Oseh Shalom, those words that pray for peace. If you're amongst those who brought a shofar with to help with the Tekiah Gedolah at the end of Ne'ilah, please do meet at the back corner over there with Paul Roberts and Michael Meerman, who will give some instructions for how we will be conducting that final Tekiah Gedolah. We continue now with the singing of Oseh Shalom.
We continue with our Ne'ilah service, the concluding service for Yom Kippur on page 612. The long day is over and the gates are closing. Slowly, day fades into dusk. Soon the earth will darken, our bodies weak and weary, our inner strength undiminished. This day has been a gift. Uncluttered time, free from hurry and routine, appointments or assignments, a time to face our sins and imperfections, our dreams and yearnings for the life we want to live, a time to leave the clamor of the world and attend to the voice within. Long ago, the temple gates were locked at dusk. So too, at this hour, the gates of Yom Kippur begin to close. Have we done all that needed to be done? Said everything that needed to be said? The gates of God's compassion never close, but soon enough, our lives close in on us. Now in the silence of the soul, now before the holy day comes to an end, release the unshed tears, the deepest prayers locked in our hearts. We continue with the singing of Return Again.
Hallelujah.
Page 618. When I consider the heavens, the work of your hands, when I gaze at the sea of space and its endless array of stars, when I set out to understand this marvel and its maker, Your greatness overwhelms me. Your majesty makes me tremble with awe. What are we that you have given us eyes to glimpse your truth? What am I that you have given me a mind to fathom hints of your purpose? We are witnesses to nature's repeated refrains, forests dancing with life, mountains rising like prayers, oceans bursting forth with hymns. In the midst of this beauty, you have placed within humanity two worlds, mortal flesh and immortal soul, finite matter and infinite spirit. You have taught us to live at peace with the earth and with all living beings, and to care for the works of your hands. But something deep within us darkens the soul. In nature, spring follows winter, but human behavior is far less certain. Called to a life of righteousness, we rebel, possessed by arrogance and unrestrained ambition. Again and again, we speak of the struggle between good and evil, love and hate, forgetting that the power to choose is the greatness and glory of our humanity. In our forgetfulness, life loses its beauty, and we hear a voice of judgment. Where are you? How you have fallen. In this hour of Ne'ilah, as day fades into dusk, we hear another voice. It says, Ata noten yad lefoshim umivincha peshuta lekabel shavit. You hold out your hand to those who do wrong. Your right hand opens wide to receive those who return. The gates of your forgiveness are open wide. We continue on page 620 with the Ne'ilah Chatzi Kaddish.
Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah V'yamah Divru Chirutei V'yamlich Malchutei B'chayechon U'v'yomechon U'v'chayei D'chol Beit Yisrael U'v'zman Karev V'yimeru Amen Yirei Shmei Rabbah Mevorach Le'olam u'lamei Alayah Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'al v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitador v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shemei Dekodesha
We continue with the Amidah. We rise in body or spirit and face east. We turn to page 622.
Adonai, open my lips, that my mouth
Misrat Sarah. Atagibo leholam Adonai mechayim itim atarav lehoshia. Baruch atah Adonai, mechayei hametim.
You may continue in your own silent Amidah and be seated when your prayer is complete.
Say shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimeru. Amen.
We turn together now in our machzor, in our prayer books, to page 652 for the Vidui, the final confession of this Yom Kippur. Anu azeh fanim, v'ata rachum v'chanun. We read together. We are insolent, but you are compassionate and gracious. We are stubborn and stiff-necked, but you are slow to anger. We persist in doing wrong, but you are the essence of mercy. Our days are a shadow passing by, but you are existence itself, your years never ending. Our God and God of all generations, may our prayers reach your presence, and when we turn to you, do not be indifferent. Adonai, we are arrogant and stubborn, claiming to be blameless and free of sin. In truth, we have stumbled and strayed. We have done wrong.
Ay, 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 ay.
What can we say to you whose existence is beyond time and space? What words of ours can reach your realm, beyond the clouds, beyond heaven itself? Every hidden mystery, every revelation, surely you know them all. On page 659, we read reading number 1 together, recognizing our good. We loved and we wept. We were kind and spoke thoughtfully. We were faithful and trusting. We put forth effort. We were mindful. We embraced. We took delight in the holy books. Were we creative and we yearned. We fought for justice and searched out the good. We tried our best and we were attentive. We did what you commanded us to do. We found meaning in Torah, and most of the time we did what is right. We proclaimed your name and we were accepting. We were joyful and we cared. We turn now to page 662. We rise in body or in spirit, facing towards the east. We read responsively in the Hebrew and English. Avinu Malkeinu, kabel barachamimu v'ratzon et filatenu. Avinu Malkeinu, almighty and merciful, welcome our prayer with love, accept and embrace it. Avinu Malkeinu, aseh leman rachamecha harabim. Avinu Malkeinu, act for the sake of your boundless compassion. Avinu Malkeinu, Aseh imanu leman shemecha. Avinu Malkeinu, act towards us as befits your name. Avinu Malkeinu, chodmeinu b'sefer parnasa v'chalkala. Avinu Malkeinu, seal us in the book of sustenance and livelihood. Avinu Malkeinu, chodmeinu b'sefer zechuyot. Avinu Malkeinu, seal us in the book of worthiness and merit. Avinu Malkeinu, chodmeinu b'sefer slicha u'mechila. Avinu Malkeinu, seal us in the book of forgiveness and pardon. Avinu Malkeinu, chodmeinu b'sefer chayim tovim. Avinu Malkeinu, seal us in the book of lives well lived. Avinu Malkeinu, chodmeinu b'sefer geula v'yeshua. Avinu Malkeinu, seal us in the book of redemption and all. Avinu Malkeinu, malei yadeinu mibirchotecha. Avinu Malkeinu, let our hands overflow with your blessings. Avinu Malkeinu, petach sha'arei shamayim letfilatenu. Avinu Malkeinu, let the gates of heaven be open to our prayer. Avinu Malkeinu, chadesh aleinu shana tova.
Avinu Malkeinu, renew us for a year of goodness.
Avinu Malkeinu, ein lanu melech ele ata.
Avinu Malkeinu, we have no sovereign but you.
We continue on page 668 with the Kaddish Shalem, the full Kaddish.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה בעלמא דברותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון ויומכון ובחיי תכל בית ישראל וגדלה בזמן קריב ואיננו ואיברו אמן שמי רבה מבורך לעולם עולמי עלי יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלם שמי דקודשה דקודשה בריחו לעינה ולעינה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תמירן בעלמה תושבחתה ונחמתה תמירן בעלמה ואימרו אמן תתקבל צנותכם וברכם דכל בית ישראל קדם אבוהם דיבי שמיה ואימרו אמן יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיים חיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואימרו אמן עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעלה
As we invite our shofar blowers to take their places around the room, we turn together to page 672. Tkiya Gedola. Yasha Kochachem. We continue now with Havdalah on page 674.
Mavil ben Kodesh lechol, Chachoteinu implor, Zabeinu v'choshpeinu, Yarbechacho, V'chachu chavim balayla. Shana Tova, Shana Tova, Shana Tova, Shana Tova. Shana Tova, Shana Tova, Shana Tova, Shana Tova. Eliyahu Hanani, Eliyahu Hatishki, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Hagilani, Bimera. Mashiach ben David, Mashiach ben David, Eliyahu HaDavid, Eliyahu HaTishbi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu HaGiladi.
Shana Tova.
Of course. You want to come eat some chicken farm at our
I just hope it's like.
It is so old. No, I left it.